So I just wanted to give a quick little background about our restaurant group. My partner started Gastamo Group about 15 years ago in the heart of Denver, Colorado. It started as a 40-seat burger joint. I I grew up in Augusta, Georgia, went to school in Charleston, moved out to Denver to go to grad school, and really I kind of stumbled upon this 40-seat burger restaurant and kind of fell in love with the idea of hospitality and have been working there ever since. Over the 15-year history, the one thing I love about working with Philippe is we've just constantly pushed the boundaries and innovated and have had an opportunistic approach more than a complete strategy. So we've kind of been looking for what makes sense today, not necessarily what we did yesterday. The group started in burgers. We kind of evolved and opened a brand named Homegrown Tap and Dough, which led to a brand Perdita Kitchen. Right now, I'm actually pretty bullish on the casual dining space, specifically around the huge technical or tech revolution that we're seeing right now, primarily for a couple of reasons. I think prior to COVID, there was an over-index and over-investment in the QSR fast food coffee space because of operational ease. It was easier to franchise a Five Guys Burgers and Fries than it was to do a full-service restaurant. And then a lot of the challenges that we're dealing with today, when COVID came, everybody in our business saw an inflated boost in sales due to the safety of dining. So what happened again, everybody way over-indexed on this fast casual, fast food, coffee expansion. And it wasn't until I was looking at real estate and I was like, to do this standalone drive-through deal is a $250,000 ground lease. There's a casual dining restaurant selling behind this for distressed land value. And I was like, man, I know it's not as good a quality of site as this fast casual site that's right on the corner, A&A, but it is in an A trade area and it's a B- site. And the discrepancy between those two price points was just so big, and I'm like, man, this is a bubble. So right now, my focus primarily as a restaurant investor is driven by our three guiding principles. One is we only invest in foods that we've eaten for generations. The fact is, it's the worst chicken sandwich is always going to outperform the best poke bowl based on market demand. So we're primarily using our investment strategy around like functional everyday foods. The second thing that we're really focused on is kind of value above on. Experiential dining has really come to be in the last 15 years. And prior to that, experiential dining really only existed in the fine dining restaurants. And now, what our kind of belief is like, well, why can't you do what you're doing in fine dining, serve more approachable foods, way over invest in the upfront infrastructure of the restaurant space, and then improve the throughput of the space, and then overall the model starts to make a lot of sense. So kind of going back to just a little bit of what we do, our primary focus right now is just kind of expanding suburban markets throughout Denver, Colorado. I did want to talk, wrong clicker. I don't know where the clicker is. Just to give you a little perspective. And then the last of our three kind of guiding investment principles is experience above function. One of the most challenging things, we do have a fast casual brand that we started called Birdcall. We raised growth equity and we've passed that brand on. And one of the biggest challenges I see with that is originally I was like, oh, wait a minute, you can just take what you're doing in casual dining and you can apply it to fast casual. But I think the biggest gap that I saw was the period at a time needed to feel the experience that's associated with a quality interior. So one of the things that I think is the biggest uphill battle that we face as fast casual operators or QSR operators is how do you really deliver experience in an industry that primarily has been driven around price, convenience, and speed. And because when I started Birdcall with my partner, I was like, dude, we're going to do the dopest vibe. We're going to bring in tech. We're going to focus on the details. But what I've been thinking about a lot lately is when you go into a beautiful boutique hotel and you just pop your head in from a designer's perspective to feel the energy, to see what's going on, you kind of see what they're about. But you don't really understand what that hotel, the energy of that hotel, until you spend the night. And then you feel engaged with that experience, you understand what it is. So one of the things that I'm really focused on right now is like, if you only have this short experience in a QSR brand, how can you deliver that level of experience that resonates with your guests so they know what you're about? So you're purely not competing on price, function, and convenience. Because that's what we've never been about that. So here's just some pictures of our brands. Birdcall was a brand that kind of came out of the Gestamo group. It started about 8-9 years ago. When we started the brand, we were big believers in kind of this, how tech was going to automate restaurants. And, at the time, I went to a restaurant in California, Itza. Did anyone ever go to Itza? Like, I still remember the first day I went into Itza, I was like, holy smokes, these people, they get it. I think they approached the problem. They approached the problem from a different way than we did, right? They were a tech startup that got into the hospitality game. We were a hospitality group that got into the tech game. But the one thing that I saw, I was like, we're all faced with the battle. Hey, do you increase price or you decrease quality, right? Margin's getting more and more challenged. These economics, we all saw construction costs. Like, these economics don't even make sense. I don't know how people underwrite $1.5 million unit. It's just especially when it's a standalone. 8-9 years ago, I saw Itza and I was like, holy shit, these people they have figured it out. People are having fun engaging with the tech. They've automated the front. Hospitality leaders can, focus on getting to know guests versus saying, do you want fries with that? And at the time, I reached out to Itza. I was like, can we use your tech? We're building this little fast food restaurant in Denver. They said no, of course. So I was like, well, I got to figure it out. The only thing I knew at the time was I saw Silicon Valley on HBO, and I was like, I feel like I know everything about starting a tech startup as a result. Either way, long story, was super, super focused on the problem. And the original problem was just how do you automate the front of the house? Just a simple order at the counter. It shows your name on a cue screen when your order will be ready. It tells you a place to pick up your food, reducing human error, focusing on a single point of contact, and then all your focus goes into the kitchen. And at the time, I was like, I just need to design a better kiosk, because I don't know if you guys remember kiosks 10 years ago. They were horrible, and they're still horrible. And so the problem was, how do you design a kiosk that, my mom can walk into a restaurant, first-time user, get through the ordering flow, get her food, and not even think about the tech. Be thinking about the food, the vibe, the design, right? Made a huge issue in the first design of the first Birdcall, because I was like, let's build an Apple store instead of let's build a restaurant. So we've made a lot of fundamental changes. Long story short, we ended up building this tech startup. It was easier to build our own proprietary POS than it was to integrate with another POS, which I strongly advise never do, because there was a lot of pain points building that. But we've been working on our single use case for the last eight years in a silo. And the cool thing that I realized after we developed this whole front of the house experience, and just to layer on the story, the tech was so bad when we first opened Birdcall, it crashed probably 25% of the time. So I had to train the team to be like, tell the guests that they might have made a mistake and they'll help them try again. But the cool thing is, what I realized is the front of the house is the easiest experience to solve. The real opportunity that exists in these restaurants is in the kitchen. And so now our focus is entirely shift. It's 100% on the kitchen systems, trying to solve the two use cases that I'm just obsessed with, and I hope the team that takes Birdcall on will be obsessed with as well, is one, the idea of variable wages. One of the biggest pain points I have with the hospitality industry is there's this lady, Alma. She's worked in Park Burger from when I was a GM there, and it's like thinking about the career. Alma runs the dish pit, and thinking about the career development, the coaching, the time that's been devoted to her. It's not the same that has been devoted to someone who wants to come in and get on the manager track. So then we're relying on a system that is a president managing a growing restaurant group, 4 to 5 different layers of manager talent in between them, with different levels of competency, all the way to someone who is a new manager, might be new to the hospitality, who's actually managing the people on the ground and saying, this is a rising star or this isn't a rising star. So the use case that I've kind of been obsessed with is, why can't you connect team members to devices and then record their performance metrics and then be able to actually identify how to coach this how to coach this amazing team member and really grow them in the right way, and because I think it's extremely important. Because one of the other big challenges is like, how many of you guys have been area directors, walked into a restaurant and just did your presidential visit and then left? It's like, we have no idea what's going on in a unit level in another state. We can look at Google reviews, we can see certain things, but do we really know what's connected? So that's the first use case. The other thing is just the idea of live loyalty. I've had 1 million strawberry acai refreshers at Starbucks, and they're yet to even recognize me. So when you have a QSR experience, I think the one advantage that we have is that we can identify that user the second they walk in the door. That's a huge competitive advantage versus casual dining, where we don't know who that user is until they leave, unless you're using a waitlist solution. So at Birdcall, you swipe or you tap to pay or you Apple Pay at the beginning of your experience. We identify the user. We're able then to start to track that user, to understand that, and now the focus is, okay, how do we use that data to make live changes to that guest experience to increase frequency? So it's been a fun project, but I'm not going to talk about that. I really want to talk about kind of, everybody's talking about, hey, what's the next tech platform? What's been the most impactful solution? And for me, the most powerful tech solution in the restaurant industry over the last 2.5 years has been, large language models and generative AI. I really started to get obsessed when, we were building tech, and I went into one of our lead investors, office, and he looked at me and he goes, do you know about ChatGPT? Do you know that it can write code? As I was pitching him on, the next feature list that we were going to build. And I had no idea, and I instantly went home and started playing with it. So had kind of the same introductory that all of us had, which was, it started with, writing poems, but then it quickly evolved to I think the first year of really using these large language models for me was really based around education. And one of the big fundamental goals of the Gestamo Group is we're really trying to build a development company, not as much a hospitality company. So we're trying to acquire all the real estate but I'm new to the development field. And so I spent that first year being like, edit this as if you were a chief development officer and at so-and-so real estate company. And it was incredible the amount I learned just talking to it. I was at a conference the other day, and this gentleman told me, he goes, an asteroid is literally coming for all of our businesses. It's just a question of the speed and then the size of the impact. So I do think there's going to be crazy role evolution. There's going to be crazy disruption that happens. And the other thing that I think is so important about this is it's the first time it creates an army of one. I don't know how frequent you guys are using tools like this, but for me, I'm using it in every day of my life. I'm creating different tailored bots that provide different job functions. And purely on the development side, where my core function is I look for opportunistic real estate. I think of a concept that can go in there. I do due diligence. I do landlord negotiations. I negotiate a purchase sale agreement. I purchase the property. I come up with initial concept, and then I pass it on. That historically was weeks of work. Now I'm literally just talking to the bot, and it's doing all of that work. And just the other day, I was driving to a tourist destination in Colorado. I saw a motel for sale. I did all of the underwriting via voice and set up the LOI and got it sent out, all with while working and talking. And so I do think the important thing to realize about this transformation, right, is the computer was the first time we interacted with an operating system with type. And then Apple really brought the point and click. And this next phase is going to be voice. I don't know if you guys start to notice your transition in engaging with these large language models. I'm really transitioning to purely voice because I'm faster, I can do it on the go, and so on. And the other thing that I think is so important about this versus why I think this is the most important tech platform, at least for our team to learn, is it's a horizontal solution that can solve vertical problems in such an incredible way. I mean, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but prior to ChatGPT 4, Bloomberg was working on their version of a specialized AI model, investing a tremendous amount of capital into that model. And by the time that ChatGPT 4 came out, it actually made their Bloomberg GPT obsolete. And that's why if look online, you can't really find anything about it. But it just shows once you start to fine tune your models, trying to solve your unique business cases, it is so much far more powerful than anything that we've ever seen for the cost of a Starbucks coffee a month. So I do think, at least from my perspective, someone who's spent the last 8 years trying to learn about developing tech, trying to provide tech, I think this tool and what it's going to do over the next couple of years is going to be far more powerful than any new tech startup, especially because I've been a part of a tech startup and I've seen the challenges associated with. We're talking about a roadmap that is several years out. We've got constant funding challenges, and it's wait a minute, can I use this horizontal solution, train it in a vertical way, and start to solve some of our biggest problems? Because right now there's two problems with these models. One is a data storage problem, and the second is completing an action. Today, ChatGPT, large language models will give you the answer. It's giving me the answer on how I'm doing my underwriting, how I'm negotiating leases, and so on. But it's not actually completing the action. I got to go forward and make that integration or so on. But I think we're going to see a lot more of that actually completing the action soon. I just wanted to I think it's a really cool visual just to see how we do it for concept creation. As mentioned, Gestamo Group, we're a concept group. So we build concepts to probably 3 to 5 locations, and then we decide what we want to do. Hey, are we going to go partner with growth capital to do whatever? But I'm constantly building new concepts, and they all go back to those guiding principles, right? It's foods we've been eating for generations, huge amounts of value, and then experience over function. We're pretty much building all of these concepts now in ChatGPT. So, I think that's the one thing that I really try to always hit home with our leadership team as we're trying to figure out what are the specialized use cases in each department that this can be powerful. But the best prompting tips are, develop a persona. You have to be an instant expert. What is the data that's actually this is built on? I think we're all, just last week I constantly find myself using ChatGPT as a search engine. It's not a search engine. And the other day I called someone based on hallucinations, and I was like, oh dude, I was this makes no sense. I apologize. I was just learning from ChatGPT. So what is the data that's actually training your solutions? I think we need to be a lot better about our expectations of the outcome. For me, when I was looking at this real estate property, I was literally like, hey, this would actually be a win. Here's my expected return profile based on the purchase price. If they're doing X in revenue, I expect I can do 25% more, so on. So constantly managing those probabilities and fine-tuning. And then the most important thing, I think, for everyone who starts to use these tools is just the focus on iterative prompting. If you believe you're going to get the answer out of the gate, I watch at the restaurant, we're really trying to train our leadership team because I think this is an evolution, and I think it's important for you to make a cultural change in your company to start using AI to drive a lot of the decision making. But a lot of the problem is just quick prompts, and then they're not fine-tuning the prompts. And you put shit in, you're going to get shit out. And yes, I'm probably spending today equal amount of time solving a problem using ChatGPT, but the production is 10 to 100x what it was before. It's a better solution. So I just quickly ripped through kind of a new concept creation, and that I did in about an hour. As a seasoned restaurateur with extensive training from the world's most prestigious Italian restaurants, you have honed your skills under acclaimed chefs. You grew up in Colorado. I always like to think of a restaurant. I'm not a chef, so I think of a restaurant concept purely by the interior finishes. So defined by brass accents, pristine marble. I wanted really to define the menu. So of course, it came up with Vita Bella, which is Beautiful Peak. This is a restaurant going into Vail, Colorado. This is a fake restaurant, by the way. So I got a name. Now I really need to start getting interior design. You know, one of the hardest things I think for concept creators and restaurant people is like, we're not interior designers. So how do you really display your vision to a lot of the architecture groups that you're working with? Now it's like, you know, when I am onboarding a new project, I'm like, I'm not sending a Pinterest board anymore. I'm actually sending Midjourney images, you know, Dolly images. I'm sending, you know, storyboards written on the concept. So now like that architect, you know, not only did they have a huge advantage and a huge start, but they have pretty clear understanding of what, you know, my expectations of where this project's going to go. And that looks like a restaurant that would be in Vail, Colorado. I mean, kind of does. So really, I've been very impressed with how that's improved. You know, another use case is, you know, menu development. I think, you know, as we said, you know, one of the most important things that we're doing right now is just building a data warehouse for our entire organization, and so that we can just make calls to it. And, you know, one of the things is like, the hardest thing about these restaurants is operations, right? Everything else is strategy. I think we're gonna see this huge shift, and the plan is gonna be defined. Like, we're gonna know the roadmap. It's, can we actually go execute on that roadmap? And that's where the challenge is, right? Of leading our teams and doing it. But point is, like, there's nothing that this can't do from a creative marketing strategy that our team can do better. So, and I think that still applies to the culinary side, right? And so it's like, have it call to your data warehouse where you have every ingredient that's in their restaurant. Hey, I need a new LTO. Here's the ingredients I have. Here's the ingredients I have. I only want to add one ingredient, and it needs to be in this core line item, and it needs to be within this price point. Come up with this, come up with the recipe, come up with the training materials, plug it into Wisetail, boom, let's go. Like, something that historically took weeks now takes seconds. So, you know, like, as you can see, created a menu. It's honestly relatively good. And then one of the biggest areas is, right, my core job is, you know, kind of, you know, vision officer, new business, looking for new opportunities. And, you know, since COVID, we've really changed our strategy to being opportunistic. So each deal looks entirely different. Nothing fits within a framework. We're not building a restaurant group in concentric circles. We're building a restaurant group based on, hey, if we're going to Fort Collins because we can get an off-market real estate deal, then we're going to Fort Collins. We're keeping it all in Colorado. But I'm constantly looking at totally different deals. And historically, all of that financial modeling was, you know, just we had our traditional sensitivity, but not all deals are equal, right? And so now I'm doing all of the initial financial underwriting, you know, estimated IRR, you know, multiple on invested capital. I'm just doing it all in ChatGPT. Now, to put this in perspective, yeah, I typed all of this out. But when I told you about that motel that I was underwriting just via voice, this stuff I'm just talking, because you know your core functions. So I'm just like, dude, I see this property, go ahead and pull the listing, see if there's any P&Ls in there, plug them into the model, assuming we can do 25% better than that model. You know, I want to raise 70% equity, we're going to put in 30%. I want, you know, and we don't need to go through this, but these are all the basic LOI assumptions that we make when we're starting to underwrite a deal as we build a financial model. And, you know, last night I just threw those in here and, you know, had my 10-year pro forma. Given I still need to go back and edit this, and last night I didn't want to kind of go through that, but I've got a pretty good understanding of, like, this deal flies. I've got a 24% IRR. I just, you know, it's just making some of those things just a little bit quicker.
So, when you say you're on the road and you're talking, you fly past the motel and you're talking to a GPT app and saying all of this?
Yeah. So if you pay, do you pay for the?
Visualize it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the other day, and it's all with this new release of ChatGPT. There's a little headphone icon that's to the left. You click that headphone icon and then you enter chat mode. And the crazy thing is, like, even the other day I had a tough week and I was going rafting, so the weekend was about to get better. And I was in the car and I legitimately had a therapy. The intern was with me, and literally had a therapy session with the new ChatGPT release. And I was like, you know what? I pay $250 every other week. I think this thing might actually be better. I feel pretty pumped up. So it's just, the applications really, really are endless. But these are things that I'm doing today. I'm doing all my lease negotiations, having huge reductions in legal bills. I mean, when I look at the P&L from the corporate level unit, it's our legal costs that are insane. Underwriting lease abstracts. I mean, how often do you have a question on a lease and you don't want to read it? Now you just throw it in there. Like we signed up for a lease management software, and you know what I found? I found by the time I got everything into the Dropbox folder for them, I haven't used their software once. I've just used ChatGPT calling to that Dropbox link that I created. So it's been faster. And you got to check the work because sometimes it's off. Administrative work, I don't know if people are using apps like Superhuman, but they're starting to get more summary modes and ways to speed up that. Tons of customer feedback. The other day I was sitting in the office and I was like, go read every Google review on Homegrown, go read every Google review on Perdita, tell me which one has a customer sentiment issue. Like which one which one has a more price sensitive customer? And was actually able to identify some areas of focus, right? Social media content, everything's gonna be fake. And tons of, career development. To me, this is the fundamental, like the best thing that we can get in this early stage of this kind of change is career development. It's so hard for a young leader to go ask your boss for like feedback. Dude, I don't send anything to anyone without editing 6 times in a large language model. And the thing is, you're actually learning. From this side of like, hey, we want to transition from a restaurant company to a development company. Hate to say it, I see a lot of successful development people. Being a successful restaurant person is pretty damn hard. So I'm like, but I didn't know anything about it. I've learned everything through ChatGPT. Hey, help me do this. Now help me understand why I did this. Why is this relevant? And it lives on your phone all day, every day. So career development's huge. I think my last slide is, organizations are going to evolve. And, we hear a lot of people talking about problem solving over the last couple days, but, frankly, it's like, hey, we don't have the time to invest in every solution, but this isn't going away. So the faster we get on board, the faster we start to learn to evolve, faster we start to understand how it's going to impact our organization, the better. And I do think there's a crazy competitive advantage to those that jump on it quickly, right? Because like I said, the roadmap is there. We now know, hey, what has the least amount of risk, what is the least risky way to grow your business? The question is, can you go execute on that plan? And do you have the charisma to go raise the capital or whatever? And then I do think, the other reason I also encourage a lot of our restaurants, I'm like, I don't necessarily know if today's the day to start switching tech. Because we start seeing, if you've seen in ChatGPT the ability to use Python to code, and the code's getting better and better. I think what we're going to see in this next, 18 to 24 months is a huge reduction in the backlog, right? All these tech companies that we all talk to every day, including our own, has this just enormous feature list in the icebox. But as software gets easier to create, as we start to use Copilot in a more effective way, these backlogs are going to drastically shrink, and there's going to be just an absolute shit ton of tech out there. And that might be the time to switch. The other thing too, make sure that whatever company you are switching to has a very, very clear plan of how they're going to integrate with a large language model down the line. And you really want to understand what large language model that actually is. Because this is going to be your data science team, this is going to be your marketing team, this is going to be everything. So if you're onboarding a new point of sale that doesn't even have it on their roadmap on how they're going to use all of this data to enhance the customer experience and help you drive revenue and decrease costs, then you probably should look somewhere else. And then the last thing, I also think no code is going to become more common. Meaning people like us can develop simple tech solutions that historically were much more challenging. Like when we started Poncho 8-9 years ago, I had no idea, how to even build a prototype. You know, we're getting very, very close to what I could have recreated 8 years ago today with a no-code prototype. And then the last thing is, like, I do think education is important. I was connected to this organization, the Visual Institute. I do recommend it it's like a one-day CEO empowerment course. You just learn a lot about just applications in your business. I mean, like I said, I assume most of you guys are using this, but every day I realize it can solve a problem that I didn't think about. And so the whole last year of my kind of daily work was like, I'm just going to try to solve everything using AI or ChatGPT, even if it takes me longer, because two things. One, I might actually learn something that'll help me do my job better, and two, it actually is probably going to have a better answer. So thanks, y'all.